id Software is a studio that has continually focused on providing first-person shooter experiences. They effectively created the genre with the release of the first Wolfenstein. While Wolfenstein was and is a true FPS classic, it wasn't the game that really cemented id as the juggernaut that it is today. When they released Doom, id provided a violent and visceral first-person shooter that mixed that up with exploration. Doom provided one of the most memorable power fantasies, and it still remains a classic FPS that people enjoy even to this day. It had an arsenal of useful weapons along with a very powerful shotgun. As id grew and matured as a studio, Doom received sequels that both capitalized on what made it special while also taking Doom in a different direction. The entries following the first Doom were met with success, but as Doom 4 was being developed, this entry was going to massively deviate from some of the core elements of Doom's identity. After a few years in development and their most recent game at the time not catching the attention they were hoping for, id was at a bit of a crossroads. Do they proceed with this questionable version of Doom 4, or do they take this opportunity to look back at their own series and find those core elements of Doom and make something both faithful and memorable? Little did they know that through all their hard work, they would craft one of 2016's best games. I present to you a look back at Doom 2016. Around 2007, development in Doom 4 was in production. This version of Doom is not the one that everyone got to play in 2016. This Doom very much took from many of its contemporaries. This saw Doom 4 looking to big first-person shooters at the time like the Call of Duty series for their inspiration. At the same time, id was making a new IP known as Rage, and that was taking priority while Doom 4 was also being developed. Doom 4 was turning into a more scripted military shooter while in a Doom setting. Rage was a solid game, but it did not launch to the success that id was hoping for. After the release of Rage, this allowed id to focus much more of their attention on their new Doom game. By this time, Doom was headed in a different direction, and with id allowed to really focus on the project, they noticed that this was not the Doom game that they wanted to release. One of the co-directors found this new model of Doom to be a good game, but he said that it just didn't feel like Doom. This Doom was more scripted and narratively focused. The gameplay would see players taking cover and participating in stationary gun sequences, stuff that you would expect in the Call of Duty series. id felt that Doom usually met shotguns and demons, and it came with a sense of speed that was not present within this model. As a result, Doom 4 was lacking in identity. From the sources close to the project, the game had aspects of Doom, but it lacked the soul and spirit of the series. This caused frustration within the development team, as many felt like the game just didn't have an identity. Around 2012 to 2013, id scrapped this version of Doom to build a new one from the ground up. This new model would focus on the action first and story second. One of the producers described this new version of Doom as being an action shooter. It wouldn't be about cinematic events or scripted sequences. The thrills would come from player inputted action. With this, the team actually went back to the original Doom and Doom 2 for their inspiration. Instead of looking at what their contemporaries were doing with shooters, they wanted to see what really made Doom unique. id wanted to focus on the chaotic and fast-paced action of their original games. Id looked at the DNA of Doom and saw that the movement was a crucial part to the experience. High movement speed was going to be part of this new Doom to appropriately fit their refocused vision. With this, id wanted movement to be a means for the players to defend themselves as they bob and weave through projectiles and enemies. Early on, the developers wanted the game to have that feeling of the player needing to be in constant motion to survive. The developers added a layer of verticality to the environments as well, and this was furthered through the player being able to climb and double jump. Essentially, the gameplay was going to retain the spirit of running and gunning. Other elements were added like the glory kills to keep the player in the action rather than running away to hide behind cover. The enemies would hunt the player down, and the player needed to use everything in their arsenal to survive. As their team focused on these ideas, the identity of the sequel took shape. While this Doom very much went back to what worked for the first iterations of the series, it did use some aspects of modern mechanics like finding upgrades and improving your weapons as you progress throughout the campaign. This allowed id to retain what made Doom special and incorporate modern progression systems in a way that fit their refocused vision. Ultimately, the development of Doom 2016 started with id deciding to explore their series by reimagining it with a focus on scripted set pieces with a deeper connection to the characters, and id wanted to put players on Earth defending it against an invasion from hell. This potential sequel was going to be slower with a focus on taking cover. Through their development on this game, id reached a conclusion that while this unreleased Doom sequel sounded like a good game, it just didn't feel like Doom. By shifting in this direction, Doom was losing its identity. It took what they had learned through developing this unreleased game and refocused their efforts to focus on what elements really make up Doom, along with what players would want and expect from a Doom sequel. This took an incredible amount of talent and self-reflection to not only realize that they needed to rebuild what they had, but that they knew something just didn't feel right. And then they went in a new direction which respected Doom's identity, and later they would be praised for it. On May 13th, 2016, Doom was released to the world. Doom 2016 has several elements like the soundtrack, performance, visuals, and exploration that contribute to this fantastic experience. But the outstanding gameplay is what provides the foundation for the game, along with holding everything together. Doom's gameplay focuses on intense first-person shooting, and there are many mechanics at play to both make Doom feel unique to its contemporaries, along with very much feeling like it belongs in its own series. The campaign is full of sequences where you walk into an area and you need to find the best avenue to survive and kill every demon that hunts you down. The enemies are relentless as they will hone in on you and not wait for you to engage them. The variety of enemies keeps you on your toes in battle. You will have weaker melee enemies, ranged foes, enemies that can float, and larger boss-like demons. Whenever the enemies have an opportunity to hit you, they will, and as a result you will lose both health and armor. While in combat, you do have some options to keep yourself in fighting condition. In each of these combat arenas are health and armor pickups. The game likes to mix situations where you are thrown into an area and you need to both discover the area you are fighting in and deal with an onslaught of enemies, along with situations where you know the area and the placement of useful pickups. So it kind of trades situations between knowing the area and not knowing it. But pickups are not the only means of restoring your health. Doom 2016 implements a key mechanic that contributes to its excellent combat flow. After you soften up an enemy with a few shots, they will glow, indicating that you can kill them with a glory kill. The glory kill allows you to kill one enemy in an extremely violent and satisfying way, along with providing you with health and armor depending on what runes you have equipped. This aspect of the game heavily impacts the combat flow in a great way. Many big first-person shooters at the time would focus on having regenerating health that would require the player to hide behind something as a way to get their health back. This would make the player feel a bit vulnerable in the situation, while also removing the player from the combat before allowing them to go back and engage the enemies. Doom 2016 does not provide you with regenerating health, and the only way you can heal is through health pickups and through the glory kills. The glory kill mechanic funnels the player towards thinking aggressively, along with always keeping the player in the combat encounter and never removing them from it. When you are in a tough situation and need health, Doom asks you to think on the fly and quickly decide which enemies to focus on to give you your health back. This will have you thinking about which enemies to focus on, and maybe you leave some of the slower but weaker enemies around as you focus on some of the bigger targets and go back to the smaller ones if you need a quick glory kill to get some health back. This mechanic encourages you to not run away from a fight, but fight smarter and keep you in the action. The older Doom titles relied on pickups steps for health, not regenerating health, so you are always in the action while in those games. The glory kill system modernizes that mentality of staying in the action and not hiding to wait for your health to regenerate, while also giving the player absolute control on the healing themselves. In addition, the glory kills are quick and extremely satisfying to pull off. The developers knew that these kills needed to be quick, violent, and memorable so that they were fun and rewarding to pull off, but also that they didn't do the opposite of their design, which was to pull the player out of the action. The concept of the glory kills did run the risk of potentially overstaying their welcome if they lasted too long, as this was a sequence where the control is taken away from the player, but this isn't the case with the execution here. The many different glory kills are quick and concise and do not interrupt the flow of combat or the action. The chainsaw works in conjunction with the glory kills in that the chainsaw is used to provide you with more ammo. Like health and armor, ammo is provided on the ground to pick up, but when you're in the thick of it, your best bet is to use your chainsaw to quickly take out an enemy and provide you with more ammo. The high movement speed, jumps, and climbing contribute to the combat flow as well. The game is very fast and provides vertical elements to give you different options while in combat encounters. Being able to grab onto different ledges is a simple thing, and it's much appreciated, especially when you're in an intense fight and moving very fast. Your means of traversal is an ally in combat, as you might find yourself surrounded and need to reposition yourself to better handle the enemies. All of these different things helps to keep you engaged and never lets the player leave the action, and these elements actively work to keep you in it. Doom 2016's greatest strength is its combat flow. Doom provides the player with many different weapons to use against the demons. You get a shotgun, super shotgun, assault rifle, chain gun, plasma rifle, Gauss cannon, and a rocket launcher. The weapons come down to using what you think is right for the situation. Are you going to try to pick off guys from far away, or do you need to fight them close up? Do you have a large group or one guy that you need to handle? Since this is an id game, it goes without saying that both shotguns are extremely satisfying to use. The weapons and their upgrades provide a good amount of weapon variety. The bosses provide some nice combat variety as well. These are large and tough foes that require you to use most of your weapons. I really like how the fights do not boil down to just circle strafing the enemy. You will need to use all the movement options you have to avoid damage from these large demons. While you will spend a large majority of your time in combat, there are plenty of opportunities for you to explore the environments and find useful upgrades for your characters. The exploration and progression is another area that Doom 2016 does a good job with. The levels provide you with plenty of upgrades to find, along with modifications to attach to your weapons to give them a new firing mode or use. For example, the shotgun gets an explosive blast, and the assault rifle can either use a scope or fire off micro missiles, along with many others for your arsenal. Some of the secrets are pretty cool nods to older Doom games. You can find older looking secret areas that will remind you of the classic Doom levels. As you explore the levels, you will find these areas that will send you to these rune challenges. You will need to do a brief challenge, and then you can slot a rune that will give you some type of buff, like earning extra armor from glory kills. From the suit upgrades to the weapon upgrades and the secrets, there's plenty to find and give you enhancements in the game, and on top of all of this, the levels have level specific challenges to complete. All of this contributes to making you want to explore and potentially replay the levels again and grab everything you missed. And when you pair the modern progression and exploration with the always on the move combat flow that encourages and rewards staying in combat, you find that Doom 2016 is something that has lasting power and it's very special. While I feel like Doom 2016's main event is the single player, I want to briefly touch on the two additional modes that are fun as well. Snap Map was a nice surprise when it was announced. This was intended to provide the player with several options to create additional levels and modes, and provide an opportunity for other players to play these player-generated levels. Doom 2016 was essentially providing an in-game level editor for players to enjoy. The use of mods is one of the best aspects of PC gaming, but this type of creation is not usually available on home consoles. I really haven't seen a mode like this since the beloved Timesplitter series. People got really creative with the snap map modes. You saw people recreating old Doom levels, or even levels from other games like Halo. I really enjoyed that you could continually search and play new levels. While the content wasn't perfect, these new maps and levels were enjoyable to play. Another neat aspect was how you could download other people's levels and tweak them or change elements about them if you wished. I enjoyed the different co-op creations that would make fun survival levels, or even a Call of Duty Zombies type level that you could enjoy with your friends. I saw Snap Map as a fun novelty mode that I could enjoy the Doom gameplay in co-op situations. It felt like a good base and something that I would want id to continue to evolve and improve on. Like Snap Map, multiplayer was an additional mode that provided a good excuse for more Doom-like action. The first thing you will notice is how the multiplayer does have a familiar setup. The multiplayer doesn't really do anything different, but what it does do is provide a fun experience. I really enjoyed how the time to kill is longer than in many popular shooters, and I also enjoyed having power weapon pickups along with equipment pickups in my multiplayer. These arcadey and older elements were kind of refreshing. This meshed pretty well with some of the more modern expectations like loadouts and experience points progression systems. As you completed objectives and defeated enemies, you would gain experience points and complete challenges. This would result in unlocking new pieces of equipment and weapons to use in your loadout, along with a bunch of customization options for your character and your guns. I found the multiplayer to be a nice mix of old and new, and it was a nice side mode to the base campaign. In a way, Doom 2016 reminded me of older games, where the game would focus on a single player campaign and then provide co-op and multiplayer as additional modes to enjoy, but not the main focus. Both the multiplayer and Snap Map are fun in their own ways, but they do not surpass the excellence of the campaign, but they do provide additional avenues to enjoy more Doom action. Snap Map provides the player some creative options to build their own levels, along with providing an option for players to just search for new levels to play. The multiplayer gave us all a good excuse to enjoy Doom action in a familiar setting. These two modes are good supplements to the main campaign. The high movement speed and verticality to some of the levels helps to separate out it from its competitors. One cool aspect of the multiplayer is how you could pick up demon icons and turn yourself into a powerful demon and destroy everyone you come across. These moments were empowering. The multiplayer also had a good amount of expected deathmatch and team-based modes. While the multiplayer and Snap Map were not the main events, they were two solid supplemental modes. Doom 2016 is easily one of the best games of that year. It did a fantastic job at taking one of their beloved properties and found a way to make a new entry feel both in line with the series and fresh at the same time. The development of Doom 2016 was an interesting one. I give id a lot of credit for looking at their initial vision and realizing that while the game may have been good, it lacked many of the core elements that Doom fans would feel like were missing. It opted to drop that version of Doom and build something new that would both respect the past and stand out from its contemporaries. Their hard work paid off as Doom 2016 was a massive success. Doom 2016 came jam-packed with content, a memorable and awesome single-player campaign, a familiar yet fun multiplayer, and the creative Snap Map. The high movement speed, jumping, and glory kills all worked to create this engaging and intense combat flow that felt unique to this game. The soundtrack fed into the visceral combat and greatly enhanced the experience. Doom 2016 is a great example that you do not always need to look to your contemporaries to figure out how to stand out, but rather look at what helped to shape the legacy of your franchise and stay true to it.